this editor said, do you want to write a book about the Grateful Dead? And I was like, yes. And what was really nice about it was I had just done a different story where the person that I wrote about was very happy, and he was having a party at his house, and Bob Weir, one of the Grateful Dead members, was going to be attending, and he said, do you want to meet him? And I'm like, yes, I do.
Welcome to the True Fiction Project, a podcast series that explores the origins of fiction. Every week, we begin with an interview, nonfiction, followed by a creative piece, fiction, inspired by something from the interview. The idea is to demonstrate, of course, that fiction is born out of our life experiences. Now, here's your host, storyteller, author, public speaker, health and wellness expert, Reenita Hora.
Welcome back to the True Fiction Project, your home for all things creative, as you know. And today I've got a different kind of guest, very creative. Michele Hollow writes about health, pets, wildlife, climate, lifestyle, all the things that matter. She has contributed to the New York Times, Next Avenue, The Guardian, Parents, you name it. And she is the author of a series of books about animals, including the Everything Guide to Working with Animals and a middle grade biography on the Grateful Dead. That's an interesting one. We're going to have to ask about that. Today, she's going to be reading from an upcoming novel, so we will get to that as well. But without further ado, hi, Michele. Welcome to the True Fiction Project.
Hi, Reenita. Thank you very much for having me.
Great to have you on the show. You have written so much about so many things. Animals, wildlife, is that the through line?
As a kid, I grew up loving animals. I think I blame my mom. She put this in my head. She adopted somebody who was taking a poodle, a purebred poodle with all the papers. I'm a breeder. We don't do breeders. To the pound because the dog was a bit unruly. It was a puppy, And I think I was about 11 at the time. So my mom took the dog off this person's hands. And my dad said, this dog better be trained or else he's going to be gone. And I was like, I loved this dog. So I loved all kinds of animals. And I grew up in the Bronx in New York. And my mom enrolled me in zoology classes at the Bronx Zoological Society.
Zoo.
Yep.
Well,
so it was about three miles from my house. I walked there and I loved being around the animals. I listened to the zoologists talk. I got to interact with some of the animals. I mean, this was bliss for me. There's certain topics that I'm not going to take to. It's just there's nothing wrong with them. I'm not into sports. That's fine. But if there's an article about animals, I will read it. I mean, I adore them. So.
Oh my gosh, who doesn't, right? This is music to my ears. I mean, I am very familiar with the Bronx Zoo, have spent a lot of time there, not as a kid myself. Alas, I didn't get there till I was an adult, but I took my kids. And you're right, that place is heaven on earth. I mean, I can see how, in your growing years, you would just get lost with the animals and the induction of their wisdom, wisdom.
It was wonderful. I mean, and then in the summers, I was a volunteer at the Central Park Zoo because I thought Manhattan was cooler than the Bronx. I like the Bronx, but I'm very proud of my roots. The animals, the zookeepers were really wild. They were great. And I remember one of the animals that I got attached to had passed, and I was in tears. And this zookeeper took me into the cage with one of the chimpanzees, and he let me hold him, and gave me a whole lesson about how I should not have favorites and that they're all important. And it stayed with me. It really has stayed with me. So now, if I get a chance to write about cats, dogs, whatever, I am happy. It's my happy spot.
Oh, that's great. That is fantastic. Yeah. I mean, those are interesting and hard lessons perhaps to learn as a kid. Don't have favorites, don't get attached. How do you not, right? So this is very interesting because then you've also done a middle grade biography about the Grateful Dead, which is quite the opposite of all of this. Tell us about that.
I love music. I think all kinds of music. I have the good fortune to write for Symphony Magazine occasionally. So, I mean, that's totally different, obviously, from Grateful Dead music. But I don't think there's any music that I don't like. So I was offered, somebody said, there's this series of books coming out for middle grade students. When, as a parent, when you have a little one in the back seat of your car, you are the one in charge of the radio. So I would play the Dead. I would play music that I grew up listening to. And this editor said, "Do you want to write a book about the Grateful Dead?" And I was like, "Yes." And what was really nice about it was I had just done a different story where the person that I wrote about was very happy, and he was having a party at his house, and Bob Weir, one of the Grateful Dead members, was going to be attending, and he said, "Do you want to meet him?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." And it was great because his kids were the age that I was writing for at that time. So he was very open and very kind and answered my questions.
So I live in San Francisco, so this is definitely,
Yes.
place of deadheads. And not being one myself, though, but I'm sure, as sure as you can be if you don't know, that there must have been other books about the Grateful Dead. And
Sure.
Was this an authorized biography? It sounds like it was. I mean, if you met
It was, yes.
Bob, yeah.
It's a small publishing house.
Small pub house. Okay. And how do you go about writing a middle grade biography of the dead or of anyone? How do you put all of that together?
I'm a journalist, so I approached it that way. And I thought I was going to do a chapter on everybody. My favorite chapter was interviewing deadheads. I'm not a deadhead. I respect them greatly. And they gave me the best information about how there could have been 25 people in a small little room in Motel 6, to save money, and how they followed them, from place to place across the country to go to all of their concerts. And, they had great stories. So, it's appropriate for this middle grade age, but they shared a lot, and that was fun for me to talk to them. That's the best part about being a journalist.
Amazing. Amazing. Today, though, you're going to read something from another middle grade book, but this is fiction, if I am getting it right. It's called Jurassic Girl. Is that right?
Okay, yes, but I do want to clarify something. It is fictionalized. When I first learned about Mary Anning, I was fascinated because here's this 12-year-old girl makes this amazing fossil find. And the men at the Geological Society, because back then, paleontology, this was in 1811 when she was 12, paleontology wasn't a word then. But a lot of people, where she lived in the town of Lyme Regis in the UK, there were a lot of fossils there. It's a seaside town.
And when was this?
This was in 1811 when Mary made the discovery.
Okay.
But Mary was poor. She was female. She was 12 years old. She was self-educated because back then you had to have money to go to school, to grade school. So how is it possible that this girl could have done what she said she did? So a lot of the men in the Geological Society just dismissed her and didn't believe her. And she triumphed. She persisted, and that's what got me into the story. So the thing is, when I interview somebody, if I'm doing a story now, I can call you and say, "Here's my questions. Can you answer them?" I cannot time travel back to 1811. So everything in the book except the dialogue and one or two characters to move the story along is true. Mary did make this discovery. It's about her family. It's about the floods in her house. She lived in the poor section closer to the ocean, and her house did flood. Badly. They had to escape through the top windows. There was a lot, and I've read some biographies about her. So biographies for adult readership, but there was no dialogue, and I thought, I was interested in this story. I think kids would be interested. That was my take.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've just released a book, also historical fiction, and the dialogue is always the challenge because you weren't there in the room when it happened. But sort of recreating a story through dialogue, I think, is so much more interesting, at least to me, and I think to readers, than sort of a dumbed down narrative, third person, this happened, that happened, this person, So I couldn't agree with you more. I have to ask, how did you chance upon Mary Anning, and how did you research her life and story? You mentioned biographies, but were there other sources?
Yes. As a journalist, I am pretty confident in my research skills. I feel very comfortable with that. The writing takes a bit more work for me. But I found out about her. I was actually blogging for a while about animals, and somebody mentioned Mary Anning out of the blue. I mean, she found an ichthyosaurus, which is a fish-like lizard. So it's not, an animal of today. But I was intrigued. So I did some research and I found out she lived in Lyme Regis. I read The Fossil Hunter by Sherry Emmeling, I believe. And that just made me want to do more research. And I looked up Lyme Regis. You could Google anything today pretty much. And at the Lyme Regis Museum, there's a Mary Anning wing. So it was actually, the Mary Anning wing is fairly new. It's about 3 years old. And it has part of the ichthyosaurus that she found. It has some of her other finds. And I was going back and forth through email with one of the researchers there who was kind enough to answer my questions.
Got it. And just out of curiosity, when was the word paleontology coined?
We had geology, so it probably was in the later 1800s.
Okay. So she just missed it.
Yes.
Okay. So Jurassic Girl comes out when, and where can our readers look for it?
It's from Ulysses Press, and it comes out September 10th, and you can go pretty much anywhere where you buy books. I know it's at the Barnes & Noble website. I'm partial to bookshop.org. They support a lot of bookstores in their neighborhood. So when I just bought a really good book right now. It's Lulu Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. Everybody should read this book. I'm only a third way through, but a portion of the proceeds from the book will go to some of the local bookstores near where I live. So I like them. So, but if you want to buy it on Amazon, please do.
Okay.
This is a scene where Mary Anning goes to her friend Elizabeth Philpot's home for the very first time. She met Elizabeth on the beach. Not many girls back then fossil hunted. A lot of people did, but also consider what she was wearing. Those long dresses that go to your ankles, boots, a big bonnet, and this could even be in the summer. So I don't like the heat, but anyway. And she would get mud in her boots. She'd get dirt in her fingernails. She was by the sea, and it was kind of dangerous too because the sea changes. And then there's the cliffs. And I got very fortunate. I have a cousin who's been living in the UK, and she went to the museum for me and took a picture of the cliffs. I had no idea that it was that huge. I mean, it's tremendous. So, because fossils were and are still, you can go to Lyme Regis now and fossil hunt. So you'll probably find ammonites, small little fossils. They're also they're snake-like coils. They have the ridges on them. So I'm going to read the first part of chapter 5 where Mary goes to Elizabeth's home for the first time. And Elizabeth comes from a well-to-do family. She lives at the top of the hill. Mary had not. So this is the first time she's in Mary's house. She's in Elizabeth's house, excuse me.
Perfect. In your hands.
Okay.
And now to the premise of the True Fiction Project, which of course is to create fiction out of nonfiction.
Look at all these books, Mary exclaimed. And I see you have newsletters from the London Geological Society going back a number of years up to the present. When we first met, you mentioned all of the discoveries recorded in the newsletters focus only on what men found. Is that true? Not one mention of women's or girls' contributions? That's true. Even though they don't see us as experts, we can still learn from the information in these newsletters. Well, we'll have to prove them wrong, Mary said. Are you hungry? We can go into the kitchen and get some food. And leave here? No, I never want to leave here. Let's get something to eat, Mary, and then you can explore. What Mary really wanted to do was look through every book in the library. Her dog, Trey, stayed close until Elizabeth filled the bowl with chopped chicken meat and placed it on the tiled kitchen floor. Trey licked the bowl clean. I know you're eager to get back to the library, Elizabeth said, but I have an idea. She rummaged through the baskets, pulled out a few fossils, and placed them on a newspaper she spread across the desk. I've been reading about these, Elizabeth said. They're quite common and are found in many places throughout the world. I believe we have a lot of them here in Lyme Regis. Here she said, pointing to an article in the newsletter, it says Georges Cuvier, head of the London Geological Society, believes fossils like these are millions of years old. Millions of years old, Mary repeated, her brown eyes widening. My papa taught me to close my eyes and try to imagine what these creatures looked like when they were alive. I see them swimming in the ocean or crawling on land. To hold something in our hands that's millions of years old is remarkable. I never tire of it. You're the only girl I ever met who loves learning about fossils as much as I do. Mary continued, so many people think I'm daft when I go on about them. Some even get mad at me because they think I'm lying. They think it's impossible anything would die out.
Michele, thank you so much. That is very intriguing. Cannot wait to hear more. But Michele, thank you for joining us on the True Fiction Project.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Reenita. I really appreciate this.
Tell our listeners real quick where they can find you online besides the bookshops, of course.
I do have a website. It's Michele C. Hollow, and it's Michele with one L. And I've been doing a lot lately for Next Avenue. I took a little break from journalism to write the book. And now I'm working on another one.
Fantastic. Well, we will have all of that information in the show notes. Okay. Thank you, Michele. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the True Fiction Project. I'm your host, Reenita Hora.
Thank you for listening to the True Fiction Project with Reenita Hora. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter to receive more inspiring stories showing how fiction is born from our everyday experiences. For more information, visit www.truefictionproject.com.